Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Welcome to the first session of the Flutter Dev Camp 2022 Web Edition. This is the Web Edition. My name is Roman Jacques. I am a Flutter GDE. I am the lead organizer at GDG Lawrence, and also I am a mentor for the Northeast of the United States in the GDG ecosystem. So welcome, everybody, to this first session of the Flutter Dev Camp. I see a lot of folks joining. Please make your way in, drop in the chat where you're joining from, because you're going to be in for a treat. So thank you so much for joining. Let's start. So again, like I mentioned, this is going to be a 4-part Flutter series. We're going to focus only on the Flutter. Again, however, you can become a mobile developer or a multi-platform developer because you're using Flutter. Flutter is this open source UI toolkit supported by Google that allows you to publish using one single code base. You can publish to a bunch of platforms, 6 distinct platforms right now. But we're going to be focused in this bootcamp. We're going to be focused on Flutter for web, because it's the simplest way, is the lowest barrier of entry into Flutter, so that you can experience Flutter firsthand. The quickest way is becoming a Flutter web developer. So in this 4-part series, what we're going to be doing is deploying a Flutter web application to Firebase Hosting. Firebase, again, is another offering from Google that allows you to build very robust backends. And it has one feature, which is also free, which is Firebase Hosting, that allows you to publish your own web pages. It has SSL by default, and it's completely free to use. And we're going to be using Flutter in Firebase together to not only, again, build cool applications, but also make it publicly available out there, so that you can have something like it, maybe like your portfolio, cool apps that you can put out there and share it with the world. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. So this is the first session. Like I said, this is the first session. Today, we're going to just be more like an intro session. We're going to be even opening up the chat and the camera for people who just want to share and just say hi and maybe take a group picture later. So it's going to be introduction and setting up your environment so that we can build upon the next sessions. So today is mostly about an introduction to Flutter and Firebase hosting. We're going to set up your environment. I'm going to set it up for the first time so that you guys can see it. So again, for those of you really advanced, you can bear with us, but we will be also setting everybody up. And this is recorded, so you can watch it later if you want to redo it or pass it on to somebody else. As you see, we have 3 more sessions. We're going to be delving more into the development of Flutter itself. And you see, we're going to be focused on building the application itself, consuming data from public APIs. And at the end, we're going to do like a big celebration. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to be showing what we built, and we're going to have a lot of fun throughout this series. So thank you so much for joining again. Again, these are your facilitators. Please say hi to them. Kevin is here. Lionel is one of our organizers. And I myself, again, as a GDG organizer and Flutter GDE, we are here to support you throughout these 4 series. But again, this is a community-led event. So it's also in collaboration. And remember, strength in numbers. So we make this happen with the collaboration of other GDGs. So thank you very much, Linda, coming from GDG Capital Region. Big applause to Linda. Elizabeth, she also brought her community as well from GDG Boston Android. So thank you to these GDG chapters for supporting these efforts and bringing the community together. So Linda, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining. So you see, this is a very community-centric event. And like I mentioned, please don't forget to join the Slack channel that we just dropped in there. I think I will just drop the link one more time just in case. Make sure to join the Slack channel. I see a couple of folks join the Slack channel. Please join the Slack channel. Go to the Flutter. See if Kevin is there also on standby just to support anybody who maybe has any issues. You can send him a message. If you're stuck or anything, he'll be able to help you out. And we have other folks who help out as well. Make sure to join the Slack channel and go to the Flutter sub-channel so that we can then support you in your journey in becoming a Flutter web developer, a published Flutter web developer. So thank you, those of you for joining this channel. So I'm just going to leave it there in the chat, and let's continue. Awesome. I see There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Linda just provided the Flutter channel right there for people to join. Thank you. So the goal of this series, let me just repeat it for those of you who just joined. If you just came right now, the goal of this series is to help you publish your first publicly available Flutter web app with a custom URL. That's what you get out of the box for free. You get a custom URL. It will be like the name of your project, .web.app. You're going to have like a unique URL, which is going to be the name of your project, .web.app in Firebase Hosting. You're going to get HTTPS by default, meaning it's going to be very secure. It's going to have, SSL, and you're going to set up your own Firebase project. So today we're going to show you how to set up your own Firebase project. And with that, I will also be sharing for those of you joining the Flutter channel. Also, I see here people joining the general channel. Perfect. You can be there, but let's all go to the Flutter channel as well. I'm going to be dropping here in the Slack channel, but I'll also do it here on the chat, these slides, where in these slides, let me know if some of you are having issues downloading that PDF. It's just these same slides, because here I've provided a bunch of great links for you to follow along, and so that you can see all the resources that we're providing for this specific session. In upcoming sessions, we'll be giving those additional PDFs as well. Sorry about that. So let's continue. So the goal is, we're going to build a Flutter application and we're going to publish it to Firebase Hosting. Surprise. So now also, if for those of you who publish a Flutter web application at the end of the series and you attend all of these 4 sessions, you're going to get a certificate of completion provided by us, of course, just to show you our appreciation and as a token of our, as a thank you to you for joining these 4 series, for accompanying us in our journey to becoming a Flutter web developer. We're going to be issuing certificates of completion from GDG Lawrence, not from Google, from us, from GDG Lawrence, because you attended our series, because you helped us out, because you learned with us. So all of you, you can use this online certificate of completion. You can share it online. You can share it in your social media, wherever. But this is kind of like your accomplishment for having endured all these 4 sessions and learning a lot with us. So stay tuned for that. At the end of the 4th session, the last session, if you've completed all 4 sessions and you've published even a simple web app, you're going to get a certificate of completion just as a thank you from us. And also, we're going to be doing Flutter and a chance to enter raffle. So we're going to be raffling hardware. We're going to be raffling a Google Nest Max, and we're going to be raffling some hardware like a Google, the Google Chromecast. Those are for US and Canada, but all the other raffles like an Amazon gift card and the t-shirts are for anybody in the world. It's because of the, the issues in shipping, like really big items and whatnot, but at least everybody's going to get something, whether a certificate of completion or a t-shirt or a, like I said, like some hardware for US and Canada. And at the end of every session, like I mentioned, I am rocking right now the t-shirt of the event. So we're going to be raffling 1 Flutter Dev Camp t-shirt at the end of every session. So at the end of this session, you're going to get a chance to win one of these cool t-shirts. So all you have to do right now, I think we're just going to collect the names of the people who signed up. Everybody who has signed up today and has joined this session is already in the raffle automatically. So all we need to do is then we're going to reach out to you. You're going to give us your email and additional information so that we can ship you the t-shirt. Okay. So also, again, this applies to everybody in the world. Like anybody in the world is going to get a t-shirt at the end of this session. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's proceed. So in this Flutter Dev Camp, again, we're going to learn how to set up our own local environment. We're going to be going through that. Everybody's going to install Flutter. I'm going to install Flutter. I'm going to show you how to install it if you haven't done so. And also Visual Studio Code, which is our default IDE, or again, integrated development environment, or code editor for building Flutter, and also for doing the Firebase deployments. Again, if you don't have Visual Studio Code, you can use any other your preferred editor, but we recommend Visual Studio Code as it has a lot of great integrations, great plugins for Flutter, and it makes you very productive. So we're going to be showing you at the end of this presentation. So we're going to get into that in a minute. Also, in this session, you will be learning how to consume publicly available RESTful APIs. In the third session, we're going to also be implementing state management. For those of you who wonder what state management is, it's just a way to decouple the business logic from the UI logic on your application. Also, we're going to be doing animations in Flutter because that's where Flutter shines, building cool animations, really cool interactions, and also making very impactful experiences. So in this Flutter Web Dev Camp, you're going to be learning all of that. And all that knowledge, you're going to use it not just for web, for mobile, desktop, embedded, anything, Mac OS, Windows, you can build anything with this same knowledge. It's just that we are targeting the web. But with Flutter, you can target 6 distinct platforms, and you can become a very prolific multi-platform developer. Also, we're going to be learning how to set up your own Firebase account. So we're going to be getting a free Firebase account. All of us in here, I'm going to show you how to create your own Firebase project. So because that's where we're going to be posting and we're going to be publishing the Flutter web application that we build throughout this series. So you're going to have to publish it somewhere. But we are providing Firebase console, but what if you want to publish it, let's say, to GitHub? Yes, you can publish it to GitHub. You can publish it to GitHub pages. You can publish it in your own web server, but we're going to be providing Firebase console and Firebase hosting because it's free and because, again, it's part of the whole Google ecosystem of products. So we're going to be using Flutter for the web application, Firebase hosting to host the web application. But with the build application, you could publish it in your own web server, on GitHub pages, anywhere, and GoDaddy, anywhere. Like you can just publish it anywhere, literally. But we're going to be using Firebase hosting because I want to show you how to do it very quick, very efficient, and free, which is what everybody loves. Again, these are some other resources. I've already dropped the link in the chat. I see a couple of folks. We're going to be answering some of the questions in the chat, but I'm just going through the slides first. So we're going to, I've already provided some of the links about the Firebase hosting and how to install the CLI. We will also do that in this session. And again, like I mentioned, the 2 technologies that we're going to be focused on right now is Flutter and Firebase. Flutter for the Flutter web app, Firebase for the Firebase hosting. So everybody guaranteed, you're going to be able to publish a Flutter web app, have it publicly available so that everybody in the world can enjoy it. So that's exactly the goal of this series. At the end, you become a published Flutter web app. So maybe some of you are asking questions. So what is Flutter Web good for? So if I've heard of Flutter, you can build a bunch of cool things, but Flutter Web in particular, what is it good for? So Flutter Web is for app-centric experiences like progressive web apps or single-page applications, or an existing Flutter web or Flutter application, you can turn it into a web application. So Flutter Web is good for those things, those really cool app experiences, really rich in animations, really cool interactivity. You can make a single-page application or a PWA. Is very cool, very easy to do. So that is what Flutter Web is good for those rich interactive experiences, single page applications, progressive web applications that feel like a mobile application, even when you load it on your phone. Even when you load it on your phone, they look like a mobile application. If you load it on the web, like on your browser, they feel like a app. So what is web good not for? Flutter Web, what is it not good for? So it's not good for those pages that have like a lot of text, a lot of content that is static, that doesn't move. For example, like a Wikipedia or like a Craigslist or like a web page that has like a bunch of context or like a blog. Is there like a lot of content to consume? Flutter Web is not good for that because Flutter shines in that rich experience and great animations, butter smooth animations, really cool interactivity with the users. So like for blogs, stuff that requires like search engine optimization, HTML pages, like stuff like that. Yeah, you can do. Flutter Web is not good for those things. However, you could have a blog and then embed it like on an iframe, and then you bring that aspect of interactivity to the Flutter web app, to your Flutter application. So you can have an existing web application right now, And you can introduce Flutter Web just by adding it as a single, as inside of an iframe. You can import it into your current web application. Like you can have a cool web app, like your blog, and then you can have a little web app, like a little game in there inside of an iframe. That you can do. But Flutter Web is not like for a whole full-blown SEO, because Flutter still like doesn't support like SEO very efficiently, and it's not like for a lot of text to be reading and all of that. Very document-centric type of applications. Flutter is not good for that. Just want to be honest. Perfect. I'm going to be answering some of the questions in a minute. Let's continue. So which web browsers are supported by Flutter? So Flutter supports all browsers, but the ones for development are Chrome and Edge, because they're based on Chromium. And I'll explain later why Chromium in particular. Of course, because Chrome is from Google and Edge is based on Chromium. So Chrome and Edge can be used for development, but Safari, Firefox, Brave, the browser that loads in the TVs and Amazon TVs, they call it the Silk browser. You could also load it there. So it can work on any browser, but Chrome and Edge are only for development purposes. So these are the web browsers where Flutter Web is supported. You can load your applications, no problem. So I just wanted to put that out there so people understand that piece. So now, how does Flutter Web work? So people want to understand, how does it work? Because I've seen that Flutter is like really cool. You can build a mobile application. How that mobile application can be on the web? How does that work? Well, I'm going to show you. Flutter Web, or Flutter itself, has the same stack. So it's a framework. Remember, Flutter is a framework, and then it uses Dart as the main language. So in the Dart language, you build your Flutter Web application, just like you're building any other Flutter application. You have your materials. You cannot use Cupertino, unfortunately, on the web, but you can use all the widgets. You can use material. And everything else under the stack, under the widgets, you can still use it. Other things, for example, you can access the hardware under the file system, like your file system from there, because there are some like platform things that a browser blocks. But anything else that you do like on a regular Flutter application, you could do it for Flutter Web. But now here's the difference. When you build your Flutter application to be loaded on the web, you have to specifically target the web. So when you do Flutter build, instead of just building just a mobile application, you have to build it using a web renderer. There are two types of web renderers. You have an HTML web renderer, and you have a CanvasKit web renderer. I will explain what those two renderers are. But at the end of the day, you build your web application, instead of building like a binary package that you can install on a phone, you actually get a web package, a series of files that can be deployed on any web server. But you have to follow those particular steps. So let me show you now how does Flutter Web work, in particular, how you build your application. So again, how does it work? So there are two types of renderers, depending on your support or how you want to publish your application. So you have an HTML web renderer. So when you do Flutter build, and you build using the HTML renderer, you actually get a bunch of web compatible files. You get a bunch of HTML, JavaScript, a bunch of CSS, SVG files. You see, Flutter, the Dart compiler, builds it as if it was a web application. But then the package that you get, you can just deploy it on any web server. You're going to get an index HTML file. You're going to get a bunch of JavaScript. You're going to get a bunch of CSS and like SVGs and all of that. So it builds a web compatible package, and it's smaller in download, but it doesn't have that much performance. But let's say if your application is simple and you want it to load very fast, you go for the HTML web renderer because it uses already the constructs of the web, which are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SVGs, and all that. Now, the other approach that you can build your Flutter web application is using the CanvasKit renderer. The CanvasKit web renderer actually uses the latest and the greatest in HTML technology using Webassembly. Webassembly is like the next frontier on how to build web applications that perform, like that are hardware accelerated, that perform like, butter smooth applications. They tap into the GPU and they can perform really fast. This one actually, the Canvas kit renderer performs a lot better than the HTML renderer. It's much smoother, but the package is a lot larger. It does still give you an index.html. It gives you a JavaScript, but it gives you a WebAssembly package, which you will see with the extension WASM, WASM, which is WebAssembly. WebAssembly, like I mentioned, is the next frontier on web packaging, how you package your web applications, because it's a very optimized binary, and it loads really fast, taps into the GPU, and is really fast. So those of you who are building like a game, do the Canvas kit web renderer. Those of you who just are building like a simple progressive web app, a single page app, do the HTML renderer. But I still do the Canvas kit because I like my animations to be really smooth, really cool. So I'm going to show you a couple of applications that are built using the Canvas kit renderer. But I just wanted to show you the two differences. And you will see now what it generates at the end. So this is how you build your Flutter application. So you say Flutter run, but this is how you run it, for example. You say Flutter run -d Chrome. That means it's going to be running your application in Chrome. While you're developing, you say Flutter run -d Chrome, and it just launches Chrome, and then you can just start coding, continue coding, and build your application. You could also mention the web renderer in which you want to run your application, because you want to see how it looks on just HTML based like files, like HTML, JavaScript, what it generates. Or you want to do the web renderer using the Canvas kit, because you want to see how performant your game is, or your web app is in Flutter, because you want a lot more performance, you want smoother animations, but you don't care that the package is a little bit bigger. Like, you don't care, your users may take a little bit longer to download the app, to see the app on the web, but at the end they're going to get an amazing experience. But if you want them to maybe get something quick, but you don't care about that much about too many animations or whatever, you do the web renderer, the HTML version. So you do HTML or the Canvas kit web renderer. This is what it looks like. After you have all your code, the way that Flutter packages it for you is it grabs all the Flutter code, it packages the core of the Flutter framework, and then it packages it with the code in your application it runs it through a Dart optimized JavaScript compiler. So it grabs all the Flutter framework, your application code, runs it through the Dart compiler, and it generates a single JavaScript file, and it's called main.dart.js. All of that is encapsulated, minified, and bundled into a single JavaScript. So you see at the end, how does it work? It generates a JavaScript, because again, the web is still powered by JavaScript and HTML and CSS. So Flutter wanted to play really nice and say, no, okay, so all our Flutter code will still compile it through JavaScript, through a Dart's optimized JavaScript compiler, which is called Dart2JS. And then that compiler, it just runs all your code, compiles it to a JavaScript file, it generates an index.html, may generate some CSS, and it also generates like a WebAssembly, depending on the type of web renderer you picked. But at the end of the day, you're gonna get server compatible files that you can just drop on any web server, and then you can host your application. So this is what it looks like pretty much. When you debug it, it's not minified, your code is not minified, and there's no tree shaking. Tree shaking is the term that is used in computer science, that features that are not used are dropped from the package when it gets built. If it's not used, it just, they just like let it loose or just drop it on the floor. But whatever gets packaged is everything that is being used for that application. And it also loads things like dynamically. So during debugging, there's no minification and no tree shaking. If you're doing profiling of your application, it gets minified, but there's no tree shaking. But at the end, when you release the Flutter web package, it's actually minified. There's actually tree shaking, and the package at the end is a lot smaller, performs a lot better, because everything is already packaged and optimized to be loaded on a web server. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. And this is pretty much what you will end up. Again, a package like this, it will pretty much look like that. inside of your build folder in your Flutter in your Flutter project, you will see a web folder. And the web folder is you're gonna see a Canvas Kit folder. If you published for Canvas Kit, you can do the assets. You're gonna get like your assets in there as well. You're gonna get like some manifests. Those of you who know about progressive web apps, require a manifest so that you can define, the icon on the launch icon, things, that you can configure service workers and whatnot. You can configure a lot of things on that manifest. And you see how you can get also an index.html. You get the main.dart.js, which is the whole application. This is the whole Flutter application built as a minified and tree-shaken JavaScript file. So it's optimized. The whole Flutter core, the whole Flutter framework, and your application's code is all compiled into a JavaScript file. So you see, at the end, you look at this and you're like, yeah, this is a web page. Look, there's an HTML, there are JavaScripts, there are JSONs, there are font files. So see, there's not like an APK or an IPA or on any other package. No, at the end, Flutter builds a web package so that you can then publish it on a web browser. So for those of you who are asking, yeah, how does it work? So you see, at the end, Flutter just builds it as a regular web application, but in a more optimized way. So I'm going to show you that later in just a minute when we start building the application. And then we're going to be using, of course, the Firebase CLI. Remember, Firebase is this suite of features and services that are provided by Google, sitting on top of the Google Cloud, that allows you to build very robust applications, serverless applications. Firebase gives you databases, it gives you authentication, it gives you hosting, and Firebase, that's exactly what we're going to be using from Firebase. We're going to be using Firebase Hosting. But remember, that package that I showed you, Firebase Hosting, you can host it on GitHub Pages, you can host it on GoDaddy, you can host it on your own web server, you can host it locally on your own machine. But I'm going to be showing Firebase Hosting because it's free. You're going to get a unique URL, you're going to get SSL. It's going to be really cool, and it's part of the whole Google Cloud ecosystem. So at the end, this package that gets built, you can publish it anywhere. So the way that we're going to be publishing to Firebase Hosting is not like through a FTP. Like we're going to grab the package and drop it on an FTP. No, we're going to be using the Firebase CLI, which is a command line interface that you also install, part of the Firebase tooling. And then all you have to do inside of your Flutter web application, all you have to do is just say, of course, given the Firebase configuration, which we'll also show you how to do, all you have to do is say Firebase Deploy -- only hosting. It grabs your Flutter web application and it sends it to Firebase Hosting. And then that's it. And it's publicly available. So you're going to say Firebase Deploy only hosting, and you just publish it to the web. And it makes it public. You're going to get an SSL, HTTPS unique URL, and you're going to get your Flutter web application for free hosted on Firebase. How cool is that? Great. Awesome. So let's start. Enough about talking. So let's start. I want to show you now how to build Flutter web applications, how to create your own application. We're going to go walk through a couple of the scenarios on how to install Flutter, how to get your Firebase project, and that hello world application that you get initially, we're going to publish it to Firebase Hosting. So who's ready to start? Leave in the chat, drop a thumbs up if you're ready, and let's start. I'm going to just go over some of the questions that we have.
Roman, yeah, there's a number of questions in chat.
Yes, so that's what I'm going to go right now. And thank you, everybody, for joining. So I see a couple of questions. Brandon, thank you very much. You say, will we have the skills to build an app like Reddit after these 4 sessions? So I already answered the questions. Reddit is kind of like a blog application. Flutter is not good for that. You could try, but you will see that Flutter is not optimized for those type of blog experiences. You could build like a Reddit mobile application, which you have a condensed amount of features, but not like a full-blown blog type of web application. And you saw it in the slide where I mentioned what Flutter Web is not good for. Thank you. Great. So, Rancel, thank you very much for joining. And you say you can use a cache to deploy to your web page. Yes, you can do anything. You can deploy it anywhere. Imad, you say how about Chrome OS Flex users? I'm still struggling to make a Flutter in the path. For that, can you help me with that, please? You can drop your questions in the chat. I'm sorry, in the Slack channel. We can help you further if you have a particular issue, maybe deploying your application or something. That's what the Slack channel is for. Please drop your questions in there. Thank you very much. Great. So Alejandro, you say how to achieve good SEO results in Flutter Web. Remember, I explained it earlier. So Flutter Web is not good for SEO. What you can actually do is build your main application using the SEO, capabilities. Like you can build it as a regular web app, and you can integrate your Flutter experience as an iframe inside of your regular Flutter web app, inside of your regular web application. So the outer shell could be a regular application that that Google can index and can apply SEO to it, but inside, then you can add some experience via an iframe. You can build like a little widget, something iframe. That way you can have the best of both worlds while still leveraging SEO capabilities. So that is my recommendation to you. Hemant said, yeah, Flutter is cross-platform. That's exactly what it is. So Flutter is not just cross-platform. Now they want to call it multi-platform because you can deploy it to 6 distinct platforms, including embedded. If you guys see this is a Raspberry Pi little device. I have Flutter loaded in here, and I have loaded Flutter web applications and Flutter applications in my embedded. So that makes it 7 then. So 7 distinct platforms. Great. Flutter Web, it is good for a big project, but depending on how you architect it, don't make it like I mentioned, like a Reddit, like a Craigslist, a Wikipedia, like a bunch of documents and text. Flutter's not good for that. You can make a Flutter Web on a big project, but make it very rich in experience, animations, really cool web app experience, not web page like experience. So you can make it like a web app. Great. Mahendra, I get a lot of Brandon says, what is Flutter? So I mentioned, remember, Flutter is the framework while Dart is the language. Here, you're going to learn more about the framework itself, and Dart being the language that you build Flutter applications. Mahendran, you say which state management is better for Flutter? So to me personally, I use Provider, and Provider is very easy. It doesn't hide the build context. And as far as state management goes, Provider is supported by Google. It's recommended by Google, and even the Flutter development tools has a dedicated tab for the Provider state management that you can manage in memory all your state. So I recommend the Provider. I use it on small applications, on medium applications, on big applications. I use Provider on games. I use it on embedded. I use it on the web. I use it on desktop. I use Provider everywhere. But if you like the block pattern, if you like the block package, you can use it. If you're a fan of GetX, you can use it. But if you ask me, I said use Provider. So to me, I won't say it's the best. I say it's the one that works for my needs. Because if I see that my application, for example, I want to, let's say I want to add more capabilities. I want to do like instead of a mono repo, I want to implement a multi-repo type of experience. So maybe the block might be good, and some other like approaches that you can just take depending on your situation. For me, the Provider state management works for every situation. Great. Web desktop embedded devices. A bunch of people already savvy on Flutter. I'm really tree shaking. Some already asked about tree shaking. Remember, I mentioned that tree shaking is that feature that allows to drop the let's say like dead code, pretty much. Like it eliminates dead code that is not being used in your application. Is just removed out of the final package. That way you don't end up with a bunch of code in your package that is not being used, or files that are not being used inside of the application. So tree shaking makes your final package much lighter because there are pieces of code and piece of the code, like code itself, that is not being called, that is not being accessed. So it gets dropped from the package, from the final package. So that's what tree shaking is. Young, you say that the 4 sessions is going to be one day. No, 4 sessions split throughout 4 Saturdays. Today is only the intro and setting up session. Great. I see a lot of people who are ready. Great, thank you so much. Yes, so Hammond, you say that iOS app creation Flutter is the best one or not? Oh, well, again, remember you're gonna learn Flutter, and you can use Flutter for anything. iOS, I call it the what do I call it? I call it the Windows, iOS, Mac OS, Web, Android, and what is it? And embedded. I think I call it the and of course you have like all those platforms, right? So I try to use like a mnemonic to learn like how many platforms is it that you can target. But with Flutter, you can target all those platforms. And iOS is cool. Android users will differ. They say that would be the best, but you could do Flutter for all those platforms, regardless of where your users are. So just take advantage of the fact that Flutter, you can use it for all of those platforms. Michael says, can you embed Flutter canvas into Flutter HTML so that the outer app loads faster, but the inner part runs fast? Yes, you can do that, Michael. Yes, you can do that. We need to talk on how to use Flutter on Raspberry Pi. Yes, we can definitely do another talk on Flutter on Raspberry Pi. I would love to, and it's really cool. So I could tell you by experience, you can build like a lot of cool things. Imagine like in that tiny screen, having like a Flutter application being loaded. It's amazing. And you have the power of Linux behind it, and you can load it on Linux as well. So that's amazing. Great. So embedded software, yes, like I was mentioning, on a Raspberry Pi, you can load Flutter, is all good. Now let's start. I say, are we also going to learn Dart today, or is expected to know a prerequisite for today's session? Today's session is going to be introductory. We're just going to be learning how to like install the requirements. We're only going to be creating like a very bare bones application. We're going to be touching a little bit on Dart and Flutter, but today's session is set up your environment for publishing to the web. So we're going to be publishing Flutter Web to Firebase Hosting. We're going to be loading Flutter. I'm going to be showing you a hello world, and we're going to be then publishing to Firebase Hosting. So that is today's session. Now I'm just going to be moving this out of the way. And I am going to start now, for example, by showing you one application that I recently built in Flutter Web. So this application is built in Flutter Web. You see how cool it is? This is kind of like the type of experience that you would want to build for Flutter Web. So it's a very, it's rich in animations, but you can also add like a lot of rich functionality. This one can be also loaded on a phone. For example, if I just grab this and shrink it, I implemented some responsiveness so that it can also load like on a phone. You can also use the developer tools to kind of simulate to load this on a mobile device. Let me show you how to do that. For example, here you can use the developer tools to say, let me add it to let's say to like an iPhone 12 Pro, and I am going to reload, for example. And then you will see like how it will look like on a phone once you load your application. So this is a Flutter Web application. It loads as if it's like a mobile application. And then here, for example, if I just like reload it from Visual Studio Code, you will see the application loading. So it's pretty much like that. You can see, for example, like right now it's trying to access like the system that I'm trying to build. I'm going to reload it one more time so that you guys can see like a simulation of that, how it loads exactly like that. So you see, it will look like that when you're loading your application. So it looks like a mobile, but then you could also make it, let me make it so that it looks like in an iPad, like in an iPad Air, like this. You see, but this is still web. When you load it then on a device, it may look like that, very rich. It doesn't look very common like a web application, but you can make it look like that if you want to. So I just wanted to show you another web application that I built is actually here in my GitHub. I can go to I will show you, for example, here in my GitHub a couple of web applications that I've built. Like this one, I don't know if you've seen this. This I built it for the IWD event for the International Women's Day. This is also built using Flutter Web. You will see it loaded in just a minute. But these are the kind of experiences, like I mentioned, that are app for Flutter Web. So here, this is a Flutter Web application that you can type a quote. For example, here, Hello, welcome to Flutter Dev Camp. So you see, I have input, I have list, I have widgets. I can download an image after I create my quote. You see, I can just download like a PNG out of this web application with the stuff that I just pasted. I can add my own images. So see, this is a Flutter again. This is a Flutter web application. This is another one also. This is another one. Let me show you like another web application. But there's again a bunch of examples that I want to show you that you can build using Flutter Web. That doesn't have to look like this. Like if you go to Wikipedia, for example, like if you want something like this in Flutter, this is not good for Flutter. So you want something maybe that is more like rich, in experience. So you want to have something that looks like a web app, something more like this that has animations and whatnot. Let me show you this other. Let me show you this other application that I built recently. That is also a web app. Let me show you. So this is a web app, but this is a web application. Let me show you this one right here. I've been building a Flutter web application that I can load on my TV and I can run it as a game. So this is built in Flutter Web, loaded on the Amazon Silk browser. This is a game that I'm building. This is in Flutter Web. This is what Flutter Web is for. And that's what Flutter is really cool for. So it's good for these type of experiences. If you want to build a full Reddit blog, I don't recommend Flutter, but you can go ahead and do it. You may get a bad experience, but stuff like this is what Flutter is really cool for. So if you want to do, again, for example, let me show you another Flutter web application that I built that you can do. You can use that for like your as a web application. Let me show you. I think I have it right here. But at least I'm showing you, see, like a few experiences that you can use in Flutter Web. So this is just a very simple way just to show you how you can do, how you can use Flutter for the web, for building really rich experiences, not document-based, text-based user experiences. Any questions from anybody? Definitely. Yes, this code, all of this will be published, this recording. So now let's start. Now I'm going to show you now, I'm going to close this. And then the first thing that I'm going to show you is how to download Flutter. So for those of you who don't know, we're going to download Flutter. So if you want to download Flutter, again, for those experienced ones or who already have Flutter already installed, bear with us, the newbies, because we're going to show you how to download Flutter. So the first is go to flutter.dev. That is how you actually access. Alejandro asks, how to avoid the blank screen that stays loading at the beginning of the application? Great question. Flutter 3 now allows you to tap into the life cycle of your web application, and you can insert a fixed image or like a blank or like a HTML image. You can add like a loading screen in there before your Flutter loads. So look at Flutter 3, the lifecycle API that allows you to do that. Yes, you do still get a blank screen, but now you can tap into the lifecycle API. You can tap into the HTMLs on load events and all of that, and you can load like a simple loading. Then your Flutter comes in, and then it's all good. There's no blank screen. So that is that's a great question. Yes, Imad says the most thing I want to know about is the responsive design technology in Flutter code. I can give you one link on one code lab that I created on responsive design. Actually, let me give it to you right now. So it is a code that I created specifically with responsiveness in mind. So if you want to learn about responsiveness, I can drop the link in here. For example, this is a particular workshop that I created. I'm just going to drop the link in there just for those of you who are interested in knowing about it, because you can learn about responsiveness. Here's the link. I'm just going to drop it in the chat. You want to learn more about responsiveness in Flutter? That is a great workshop created by yours truly that you can follow along and you can learn about responsiveness in Flutter. So you're welcome. How to avoid the blank screen? We already answered that. David, you said for the second web app you showed us, did you use custom paint to get some of those curves, or is that a package easily for do that? Great question, David. I use the custom painter. You were right on the money. I can even show you other applications that I'm using where I'm tapping into the custom painter, but I want us to focus on the Flutter Web. But even in Flutter Web, you can use the custom painter and tap into the underlying capabilities of Flutter, because that's where Flutter shines. Rich animations, great experiences. I don't know off the top of my head about a specific package for doing like those type of curves and whatnot, but I did it all myself. I did it custom, but I can help you find out and I can drop it in the Slack channel for you. Great. Let's continue, guys. So now we're going to install Flutter. So you go to the development if this is your first time. And you say you're going to learn. I'm going to learn about Flutter. I am going to download Flutter into my system. So you can scroll all the way down in the Flutter dev.learn, and you see where it says like the beginner, in the beginner tab here. I can even zoom in a little so you can see it. And here it says, let's get started. Let's go with the installation guide. Installing Flutter and setting it up for web is a 1, 2, 3. But if you want to do Android and Xcode, it's going to take you a little bit because you need to install Xcode or you need to install Android Studio, and there's a lot of other dependencies. That's why I'm showing you Flutter Web, because Flutter Web, you just download it and that's it. You download the framework and you're all set, because Chrome, you already have it installed, and Chrome is what's used to deploy the applications. You're going to get a bunch of errors saying like, oh, I can't find Android or I can't find Xcode. Don't worry about it, because we're not going to use that. But the easiest way and the fastest way for you to get developing in Flutter is going for Flutter Web. And most of the knowledge that you're going to be using in Flutter Web it crosses over to the mobile side of things as well. So let's continue. I'm going to go to the installation guides. Here it shows you how to install Flutter. So you have the multiple operating systems that you can install Flutter: Windows, Mac OS, Linux. Mac OS because I have Mac OS. So I am going to, Nyong says, how do we install the specific version of Flutter? For example, we have Flutter 2.10. So the best way to do it is if you already have Flutter 2.10, you want to do a Flutter upgrade. So right in your, let's say in your Visual Studio Code, you upgrade to Flutter 3. I recommend you guys be on the latest version, because you're going to take advantage of, again, performance improvements that they did. Again, improvements on the enums. Like a few folks mentioned earlier, the lifecycle APIs and all of those things. Great things that were added to Flutter 3 that you should be taking advantage of. So do Flutter upgrade. Make sure that you are in the latest version of Flutter. Let's continue. So I'm going to download the version of Flutter for Mac OS. So I'm going to, if you see right there, I am on Mac OS. I'm just going to go to Mac OS. And because this thing that was introduced with the Flutter 3, for Mac, because Macs now have the M1 processor, which is the latest generation of processing power of the processors that power all the Apple hardware now, which are called the Apple Silicon or Apple M1. You have two packages. If you have a Mac that has an Intel processor, you can find out. If you do, you can just click here on the Mac and say about this Mac. And here you will see the type of processor that you're running. In my case, I am running the Intel processor. If you have the latest Mac, like Jose Michael, I know that you do have the latest M1. For you, it will say M1. For those of you who have M1, make sure to see if you're running on a Mac, look at the processor that you have. Then you download the correct package, whether it's the Intel package or the Apple Silicon package. I have the Intel processor, so I will download the Intel package. So I will just click here where it says macOS 3.2 stable. I will download the whole Flutter SDK. The whole Flutter SDK downloads as a zip file. That zip file, then you unzip it, and you will see the whole framework already part of that package. It says that it's going to take a little bit for me, but I already have it downloaded. So I'm going to show you then how to go about that. So let's say I assume that I already have the package downloaded. So you see, it's downloaded. So let's assume. So I'm going to cancel it, and I'm going to show you what the package looks like after you download it. So when you download it, it will look like this. Let me show you. So you will have like a folder that says Flutter. Let me see. I think I have it. Just give me a second. I already added it to my machine here, and I think I have it in the. Just give me a second. Here it is. So in the Flutter, in my home folder. I'm sorry. Here it is. So for example, you can just download it and you will have the Flutter. I usually drop it in the applications folder. Like when you have that zip file, you can just come in here and drag it into the applications folder. But I think I still have it here in my I think I have it in the downloads. But for example, let me find where my Flutter package is. So these are just other Flutter packages. Let me find where I downloaded it so I can show you what it looks like. Or for example, in my particular case, I will show you where Flutter is because, for example, if I say, give me 1 second. Here it is. So it's in my home directory. So if I go here to the home, here it is, Flutter. So the Flutter, this is the package that you will see as part of your download. And let me just zoom in there so that you can see it. So the Flutter download, once you download that zip, the stable zip package, whether it's for Intel or Apple Silicon, it will look like this. So you will have a Flutter folder with a bin folder. In the bin folder is where the Flutter executable is, the one that performs all the commands for you, the main, the core of the Flutter. So all of this is the Flutter framework, nothing else, nothing more. After you download the Flutter package and you download it to your machine, keep it wherever you want to keep it. But I would recommend you either, for example, keeping it in your home folder, the way I have, for example, like Roman Jaquez, that's my home folder, and you can just keep the Flutter folder there. Like you unzip it and you put it there. That's where you put the folder. Then, or you can put it in the applications. My recommendation is dragging it to the applications, but I left it here and I'm just going to keep it here. So after you do that, you download the package and you unzip it and you have the folder in there. Now you can open, for example, a command line. So you can open a command line because in the command line is how you're going to, let me just zoom in a little so you guys can see it. Perfect. That is the command line. And if you see the steps, it's actually going to tell you that. So after you unzip the Flutter framework, then you have to add the Flutter tool to the main path. Why? Because this is how the Flutter framework will work for you, because you're going to be running, whether you're going to be building your application, whether you're going to be running your application, whether you're going to be debugging your application. When you're debugging, you're going to be doing hot reload. All of that has to happen through the command line. So I'm going to show you now how to do that. So remember, I showed you where my Flutter is. Let me just point you again exactly where it is. So it's in my home folder. And this is the command line. So let me just bring it over. And here it is. So I'm going to go to my home folder. I'm going to do exactly the same thing that they're doing. They're putting it inside a folder called development. If you want to do that, you could do that too. But if you see here, I have the Flutter folder. So I'm going to say cd Flutter. You see, that's the Flutter package right there. That is the whole Flutter. And if I go to Flutter, then there is a bin folder. This bin folder is very key because this is where you need to point your path, whether you're running on Windows or on a Mac, you need to point your path there so that when you run it in the command line, then you can see it execute your commands. So you see, I downloaded the zip. Now I'm going to export the path. You can even do it like this in your current command line session. You can just immediately say, sorry about that. Okay, perfect. So you can even do this. I'm going to keep it right there. I can say I'm gonna come back to the home directory, and I'm going to say export path equals, and then I can say $path because it's going to add it to the path, and it's going to use as the directory, and then I point to the directory where the the present working directory. I can then point it to where that bin is if you're here, or you can just immediately give it the path of the whole folder. So is in my users Roman request, and then I do Flutter Flutter like this. I think that's how it is for me. And then I just do /bin. That is how it should be for you. If you do this and then you run it, then it's in the local path. But if you close this window, you're gonna lose the path. You want to make this part of your permanent path on your Mac OS or in your Windows. In Windows, I think you set it as an environment variable, and then you can just set the path. In Mac, this is how you do it. So on a Mac, you do this. You have a profile. You have a file called bash profile. Let me zoom in a little more so you guys can see it. And it should be in your home folder. So look at this. So if I show my home folder a file called bash profile, you see right here, this is what you need to do and add in your bash profile. So for those Mac users, you will have to say sudo sometimes if you're going to be a super user, and you say nano, and then you do in the home directory .bash profile. I have to put my password, of course. And then here you have to add one more line. If I didn't have this line, for example, I would have had to add it. So I would have had to say export Flutter path equals users. You see right there, Roman Jacques Flutter /bin. So it goes to my Flutter, to the Flutter bin package. So you need to point it where the bin folder is. Once you download the zip file, let me show you one more time. Once you show me that zip file, once you download it, see folder, this is the one that you're concerned about. So this one is the one that has the bin folder. So you need to point it to where this Flutter bin folder is. After you do that, I am going to cancel out of here. And you see how then I am adding it to the path right here. You see, I'm just saying Flutter path and then append the path. What this does is appends it to the full path. And now it's available to you all the time in your command line. So I'm going to close out of here. I'll say yes. And then after you do that, you can just close your window. And then if you open it one more time, open your command line, and you want to test whether you actually install Flutter. So you do which Flutter, and then you will see that when you say which Flutter, you will see the path to your Flutter. Or you can say Flutter Doctor, and going to be running some analytics and some diagnostics on your machine to see whether you're ready to build in Flutter. So you see all the steps. Download the zip file, which is a Flutter framework. Point your path in your bash profile. If you're running on a Mac, you're going to be running that. And you see that after I ran the Flutter Doctor, it tells me that I am all set for running Chrome. You may get issues on these guys over here, like Android and Xcode. If you're not doing Xcode, or you're not doing Android, you're gonna get like an X, like a red X there, because it's gonna say that is broken for you. But don't care about it. You are gonna get a green check for Chrome developed for the web, because you don't have to do anything else. Chrome is already installed, so it's already saying that Chrome is ready for you to build. So after you do that, then you're all set to start building for Flutter. That's all you need. Any questions in the chat? I think you guys can drop your questions in the Flutter channel. Again, one more time. Kevin is there. Linda is there. She may answer your questions, provide some great resources. But you see how easy it was to just download the Flutter package, the Flutter framework. Download the zip. depending on your platform, just unzip it and put your Flutter folder, the one that has the bin folder inside. You can put it anywhere you want, and then you point the path to that bin folder. After that, all you have to do is just restart your terminal. You can either do which Flutter or do Flutter Doctor. And Flutter Doctor, sorry, I misspelled it. Flutter Doctor is just like a diagnostic to check if your system is up and running for building Flutter. If you get the green check in Chrome, you're good, because we're doing Flutter Web in this session. If you want to go ahead later on your own and build for Android and Xcode, I would invite you to continue looking at some of these links in here so that you can see Flutter for iOS, Flutter for Android, and then you can install it. Yes, Anyong, you're getting an error. How can you fix it? Please ping Kevin. Drop your question in the Slack channel. Kevin will be able to help you. You can ping him directly. He can help you with your issue, because it should be something very easily solvable. So Kevin is going to help you out with that. Thank you for your question, by the way. Anybody else is having an issue while downloading the Flutter framework? If so, please drop your questions, drop it on the chat. Remember, we're going to be 24/7 on that channel. Anytime you're getting an issue, drop it in the channel. We're going to answer it for you. Great. So you just drop your question in the chat. Tell us what the issue is. We're going to answer it even after the end of the session. So please, please, please continue communicating with us, because we want to help you become published Flutter web developers. Great. So after I did that, you see I was going through, I ran the Flutter Doctor, and it was all good. That's it. Sorry about that. And then that's it. There's nothing else. See, here it shows how to update the path, of course. That's exactly what I did. For those of you who want to set it up for iOS or Android, you can just continue on that page. But I'm done with Flutter because I already installed it for Flutter Web. Now that you're set with that, the next thing. Now I am going to show you how to create your own Firebase project. It's so simple. Firebase, again, like I said, you go to, I'm going to drop the link in the chat right now. Everybody can go to console firebase.google.com. Sorry, right here. I'm gonna drop the link to the console. So it's console firebase.google.com. So I'm gonna be dropping the link in here. You can go to console.firebase.google.com. This is Firebase is part of the Google Cloud. If somebody asks you, have you worked in the Google Cloud? You can confidently say yes, because Firebase is built on top of the Google Cloud. All the infrastructure that powers Firebase is running on the Google Cloud. Exactly what we're going to be doing here, which is creating a project for hosting. You're going to be doing it here, and you're going to be doing it on the Google Cloud. So again, like I said, Firebase, DK, you say I have 3 issues, Visual Studio missing. Oh yes, if you you say if you have Visual Studio, it still gives you that issue. Okay, Android and SDK is missing. Android Studio not installed. Forget about Android Studio. Focus on the Visual Studio part. If you don't have Visual Studio, focus on the Visual Studio portion. But even that, you don't need Visual Studio. They're just recommending Visual Studio. I'm going to show you also how to install Visual Studio, but you don't need Visual Studio. You can use Sublime, you can use any other tool, but then you're going to have to use the command line to then do like the reloading and all of that. But for building the application itself, you don't need Visual Studio Code. I'm just giving you the tricks here. Like, you just install the Flutter. If you only get the Chrome green check, you're good. Android, forget about Android. iOS, forget about iOS. That's it. But if you're getting an issue with Visual Studio, even though you have Storm, you can use Atom. You can use Atom. You can use JetBrains. You can use IntelliJ. You can use any of those to build a Flutter web app. They recommend Visual Studio, and I recommend it too because it gives you IntelliSense. It has a bunch of cool plugins that you can use. So I'm going to show you now. Actually, let me finish the Firebase stuff, and then we're going to go to the Visual Studio. Great. But DK, can you drop your question on the chat? And Kevin will be able to help you, but I can also show you how to do that piece. Actually, let me show you then about the Visual Studio before I proceed to that. So if for those of you who are getting the issue on Visual Studio. Visual Studio is one click away to download it. So you just go to code Visual Studio download. Right here, I'm going to drop the Visual Studio, and it's very simple. Again, you can even code Flutter in the command line if you want to, but they recommend Visual Studio, and you saw it there in the like here it says Visual Studio code. They recommend it because Flutter has like really cool plugins for that, and it makes you productive. That's cool, but it's not mandatory. It's a plus, but it's not mandatory. So let me install Visual Studio Code, which is the preferred editor, a recommended editor for Flutter. So I'm going to download it for Mac right here. So you just click here and it just downloads it. That's it. See, look, it's a zip and it's going to start downloading. So after you download it, I think I already have it in my downloads. Let me just show you. Let me see real quick. If I do, then I will save you the trouble. But let's say if you're watching this video, or whoever, for those of you who are in the future, hello, you can, definitely download Visual Studio code, and then you can do that. So for example, I already have it here. I'm going to cancel it. Actually, it's downloaded pretty fast. So, but anyway, I'm going to cancel it because I already have it. So here I have in my downloads, I have the Visual Studio Code Darwin Universal is a zip. So when you double click on that zip file, it will unzip it for you. You see, all these tools are very easy to download. They're not very, and there it is. Visual Studio is already there. You just download it, unzip it, and you drag it. You can drag it here to the applications folder. Because if you double click on this Visual Studio Code, it's going to launch right away. Look, it's going to launch. It's launching here. There it is. Like, that's it. You just download it, unzip it, double click it, and you have Visual Studio. That's it. So for those of you who are on a Mac, go back to the Mac OS, download the zip, let it download. When you get the zip folder, and when it downloads for you, just double click and open it, just like I did. And you see, when I double clicked it and in a zipped, it just showed me the Visual Studio Code, and I just can drop it to the applications folder. I already have it. I don't want to ruin it. But if I drop it, look what it will say. It will say, are you, an older version of Visual Studio Code is there. Do you want to replace it? I would replace it. So I'm going to stop it, but I don't want to replace it. Then you can come over here, go back and say Flutter Doctor, and you should be able to see Visual Studio Code with the little checkbox. So I hope, DK, that answers your question. Young, if that is your question as well, the Chrome proxy service failed. Internal error, no frame with index 14. So if you can reinstall, that's perfect. So you can do that. But again, after you just download Flutter, please ignore anything else other than the Chrome. And if those of you see, now is detecting that I have another version of Visual Studio, which is okay. That's fine. But you see how easy. Just download the zip, grab the Visual Studio Code, put it in the applications, and you're all set. And then now you should see Visual Studio Code, the green check in there. But forget about Android, forget about Xcode. But Chrome is the one that you're really concerned about. You want to get a green check in there because we're going to be doing Chrome. Now, after I did that, I can just move on to Firebase again. So for those of you who want to, yes, Michael, thank you. Yes, Michael Sim says for Windows folks, you can use Visual Studio as well. That is correct. Thank you very much for that point. Jose Michael, you say we have to click on the project in Firebase. Yes, I'm going to go right there now. So for Firebase, you can click here where it says add project. Let's all add our project. You can call it anything you want, but start thinking about maybe the app, the web app that you're going to be creating. Are you going to be creating your own personal portfolio? Are you going to be creating a game? Are you going to be creating a cool page, something for your, you're a fan of, something that you want to create a quick, cool page? Do it. I'm going to click here where it says add project. Console firebasegoogle.com, click on add project. And you're going to start with a name within my project. My project, I'm going to call it, actually, I'm going to show you one application that I'm going to be building throughout the series, which I'm going to be, I know that for example, I'm going to build like a couple of applications. I can even provide you with designs if you guys want to play around with some of my like UI designs and want to make it into a web app. Please go ahead. So for now, I'm just going to be calling it Flutter Dev Camp. For example, I'm going to be creating the page for the Flutter Dev Camp because we want to be doing this event every year. I'm going to be creating an official page for the Flutter Dev Camp. So I'm going to call my project Flutter Dev Camp. That's it. After you do that, then I say I confirm that I will use Firebase for purpose related to trade, business, blah, blah, blah. You can do that. But you see, it's just click on create a project, put the name of your project, and hit continue. I'm going to hit continue. You can skip this step that says enable Google Analytics for this project. You could add analytics to your project, which gives you much richness. But in this case, let's skip it because you can come back again and set it up. But again, step number 2, skip Google Analytics. Just skip it, completely skip it. And click create project. That's all you need. We're just going to stay here until the project gets created. I hope some of you are following along. So if you see console firebasegoogle.com, we just created a project called Flutter Dev Camp, and that is my project in my console. With the console, for those of you who went into the console that may not have been logged in, that's something that I missed to show you. You can use your Google account. I recommend using your Google account to join the console firebase.google.com. So you use your Google account, or you can create a brand new Google account just to join the console, the Firebase. So I'm going to go back to the home just so that I can show you that you will see that I have my new additional project in there. Alejandro says, is it necessary to install Node.js for Flutter Web? For Firebase, because the Firebase CLI depends on Node.js, yes, but only for running the NPM. But you don't need Node.js for Flutter Web. You don't need Node.js for Flutter Web. However, you want to host your application locally, you would need, for example, like an NPM package like HTTP server or something like that. But Node.js is not required for Flutter Web. Not that I'm concerned, not that I know of, because I've done Node.js, but I've never had to tap into Node.js to do Flutter Web. I hope that answers your question. Jose, thank you so much for joining, buddy. So Jose Ramos says that he created a new project, but he doesn't have a resource location ID or region like US East. How can I assign one on Firebase, or is it okay if he doesn't have it on? So it's okay that you don't have it on, because again, when you create your Flutter project, as long as you have your Flutter project, it's all set. Because it either creates one automatically for you. So I can even look, I'm going to create another one. I can click add project. You tap one, you just tap the name. Just leave it like that, and then just create a project name, and then that's it. Continue. Uncheck Google Analytics and create project. That's all you need for the project, nothing else. If you didn't get one, try. I don't think you require one a resource location ID unless we're gonna be doing something with that. But right now, all we wanted is just create a basic Firebase project. That's all you need. That's all you need. That's all you need. Now check this out. After I install Firebase, I've already provided the PDF on the things that we need to do. Now that I have Firebase, I need to install the Firebase CLI. But we're gonna get to that point in a minute. The first thing that we want to do now is, now that we created the project, see that we created the Firebase project, let's go back to, for those of you who already have Flutter, let's build our first Flutter application. Inside of that Flutter application, then we're going to set up the hosting. Let me show you. I am going to open Visual Studio Code, brand new for me. So I'm going to open Visual Studio Code. I'm going to move this over so that you guys don't get confused. So I created the project. That's all you needed for Firebase. Just create one project. You can name it anything. Now let's go back to Visual Studio Code. This is Visual Studio Code. For those of you who are using Atom, you can definitely use Atom. That's totally cool. But you're going to need then the command line to build the project, to build the application. So I'm going to open up a folder where I'm going to create my Flutter application. So I'm going to my documents, and inside of my Flutter, I have a Flutter. Let me see. I think I have a Flutter folder in here. Perfect. So I'm going to be using this folder. Great. So I am in that folder. I am going to open the command line from Visual Studio Code, which you can do in a Mac by doing Control tilde, like the little key before the number 1 on your keyboard. And then it opens up the command line. For those of you using Atom, JetBrains, Sublime, open up a separate command line to the folder that is in your application. And then inside of that folder, you're going, because you already have Flutter, make sure that you have Flutter. So you check again, you say which Flutter, good. Flutter is already part of my path. So again, the way to build and create your first Flutter project is by typing Flutter create and then the name of the project. I'm going to be calling it Flutter Dev Camp. For those of you who want to create your own project, you can call it anything you want. We're building this project locally, and then we're going to deploy it to the web. So we're going to say Flutter create and then the name of your project. That is how you build a Flutter project. So make sure that you do Flutter create and the name of your project wherever you're going to keep your project. You can keep it anywhere. You can keep it in your documents, in the desktop, anywhere. Make sure that it is available for the command line, for the path, for this command. So I'm going to say Flutter create Flutter Dev Camp. I hit enter. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to create the first project, our very own project. This is the project that we will use as the foundation for our web application. And we're going to deploy it to Firebase in a minute. Now you see, it says all done. In order to run your application, you can do Flutter run. But remember, we're going to be deploying it for the browser, not Android, not iOS, not embedded, for the web. So for those of you who are getting the error on Android or Xcode, disregard it. Perfect. Now that we created the project, you see the projects in here. It's called Flutter Dev Camp. I am going to CD into it, or I am going to open Visual Studio Code inside of that folder, because I want to make that folder the root of my project. So I'm going to do again open folder, and I am going to just open that newly created Flutter Dev Camp folder, and I'm just going to hit open. Now, when you see it and you open your project, you will see that the root folder is the Flutter Dev Camp, and then everything else is underneath it. Everything else, this is the whole project. This is the whole Flutter Dev Camp. Perfect. We're all set. Now, the file where you're going to be working on are actually here in the lib folder, and you see a main Dart file. Whenever you create a project in Flutter, you get this boilerplate code, which is just like a hello world in Flutter. The main Dart is the main file in a Flutter application because it contains the main method, which is the one that bootstraps the application, and it has a bunch of stuff just to show you like a demo version of Flutter. When you build, and here is where like some of the web components are that your actual application is going to be using to build your web app. Now let's run this hello world application here in my machine. So after you build the project, remember, after you create the project, you CD into the project, you see the folder right here, Flutter Dev Camp, and right at the root of the project, you're gonna type Flutter. You're gonna say Flutter run -d Chrome. Why -d? This is why -d. -d means device. If you type the command Flutter Devices, that's another command available in Flutter, it's going to tell you all the devices that you have connected to your machine that can be used as a potential target for your Flutter application. Right here, it says 2 connected devices. It's saying Mac OS, meaning I can publish a desktop application for Mac OS, or Chrome is a device, is the browser. So you can use that to deploy your application. So when I say Flutter D, Flutter run, meaning run my application, minus D to this device, Chrome. You pick this ID that is right here, and then it's going to deploy it for you there. So let's do it again. I'll say Flutter run minus D Chrome. That means Flutter run my project in this device, which is Chrome. So let me undo here because I messed it up. Let me do it again. Flutter run minus D Chrome. And then I just run it like this. I hit enter. You will see that it's going to be compiling it. It is going to be building it. And it's going to be running it through the Dart JavaScript compiler. All this code that is there now is going to be created, is going to be built into a JavaScript file that then is going to be deployed to a browser. It's going to open up a window for you and is going to deploy your application as a web app. And I'm going to show you the files that it generates after it finishes this. While that, okay, now see, there it is. It already popped up. It already pops up in Chrome, and you will see now the application. There it is. So now this is your first Flutter application built for the web. And you can even click on this little button right here, and then you see like things going on. You can use the hot reload. Actually, hot reload doesn't work on Flutter Web, but hot restart does. What it does is it just clears the whole application and restarts it again. For example, if you just hit R in the command line like this, it just reloads the application. For example, you can start making changes like let's say the app bar. I want to make it red. For example, I can say background color, colors.red. And then when I save it and reload, now you see that the home, the title bar is red. So you see, you can start building your application. As you're building, it reloads on the right-hand side. You see the application reloading just by you hitting the R. You're hitting R, that is called hot restart. It just reloads your application. Jose, you say if you download the VS Code plugin for Flutter, you will see the available devices. Yes, amazing. That's why I love folks like Jose, because they help me out. They keep me in check. He's correct. That's why I say Visual Studio Code is recommended, because you have plugins and you can see the available devices available in there. Thank you, Jose, for that pointer. Michael, you say, can we add dashes to our project? Yes, you can. You can add dashes to build your project. I think is the one that is not allowed is underscores, but you can use like dashes, I think. But you don't need, for example, you can separate it by that special character, as opposed to doing, for example, as opposed to doing like an underscore. I think that's the one that is not available. Actually allowed as a valid character. Great. So you saw that I just built the application. Now let me show you what do you get as you're building this application. You're gonna get a build folder like this. You see this build folder? You're going to get a build folder when you build your application. Let me show you. So I'm going to cancel my debugging because I'm debugging the application. Now I'm going to build it, let's say for the web. Now I'm going to build this to publish it to Firebase, for example. Great. Yes, you can say Flutter create and then the project name, any project name. Yes, perfect. You can call it the same way. You can call it the same way as mine, no problem. So now I'm going to build it to deploy it to Firebase. I am going to say Flutter build, right? And then you can say build, and then you can say Flutter build web. If you say Flutter build web, and I just hit enter, it's gonna build it for the web. I did not specify the web renderer. Remember the web renderer, which you can say like is either Canvas kit or HTML kit. By default is using auto. Auto means if you're building this on a desktop, it's going to be using the browser, because you're using a browser on the desktop, is going to be using the HTML renderer. It's going to be using the Canvas kit renderer. But if you are actually running it, actually when you deploy it, let's say you deploy it on Firebase and you run it on a mobile device, the HTML renderer, but when you're loading it on a desktop, it's going to be loading the Canvas kit renderer. So the auto is going to load both renderers for your package. Like right now, when I build this, I say Flutter build web. It's going to build both renderers. It's going to bring it inside of the package. But when your users go on a phone and they load your web application, it's going to load the HTML renderer. But when your users go on a desktop, it's going to load the CanvasKit renderer. Now let me show you what is in the build folder. If you go to the build folder, you will get a web folder. And you see here that you get an index.html, right? You're going to get a main.dar.js. All this dar.js is your code, Flutter core, the whole framework, all minified and bundled into a single file. Then you get, of course, a manifest, you get a version, you get an index.html. Look, the index.html is nothing more than just a very straightforward index.html that is just loading. Look, it's loading the Flutter JS, it's loading the manifest, and it's loading here, for example, dynamically, it loads your main.dar.js. Just this. This is the HTML. There's nothing in here. Nothing else. Just the HTML that loads your optimized JavaScript and, of course, some initialization code. If you see it here, for example, in this flutter.js, look at what it does. It says here in the flutter.js, it's going to say, load me the main.dar.js. It's going to load as a service worker because it's going to load it in the background for you, and it's going to be very optimized. So you see, now you can grab this web folder and you can load it on any web browser, on any web server, I'm sorry. You can load it on GitHub pages, on your local one. Let me show you how you do that. So for example, locally, I am going to open up a web browser, a web server. I'm going to be creating a web server. Check this out. So I'm going to go to documents. I'm going to go to my documents, my Flutter and Flutter DevCamp, right? So you see, that is the project. I am going to go to the build folder. I'm going to go to the build folder. You see it right there. I am in the build folder, and the build folder has a web folder. So I cd into the web folder, and right inside of this web folder, I am going to run an HTTP web server. So check this out. HTTP server. This is a Node.js HTTP server for those of you who were wondering. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to localhost 8080. And if I run it, there it is. That's my application browser. I just grab this code, drop it anywhere, and there it is. See, it's just a web application, just like normally. I can grab this code, drop it on the GitHub pages. I can drop it on an FTP on GoDaddy. But what I'm going to be doing now is this web package, I am going to send it to Firebase. I'm going to send it to Firebase now. So I have it ready. You see, it says build web. Now, how do we do Firebase hosting? Now, let me show you. Let's come back to Firebase, and we have our project. You see our project right there, Flutter Dev Camp. I'm going to go to my project called Flutter Dev Camp. Perfect. Yes, I'm going to show, Alexander, I'm going to show you now how you can install NPM and how you can install the Firebase tools. That is the part that we're going to be doing now. Yes, yes, and Michael, yes, Michael Sim, I did Flutter create, Flutter webcam. That is the creation of the part. Yeah, that's what we did earlier. And Alexander, yes, I'm going to show you how to install Node.js in just a minute. This is going to be, again, recorded so that you guys can see it later as well. I'm going back just to Firebase so I can tell you the piece where we're going to be doing the hosting. So if you open up this, expand this panel right here on the left-hand side, you will see that it says hosting right here. Firebase actually gives you a bunch of features, but we're going to be leveraging the hosting. This is kind of like if we're going to GoDaddy or to FastWeb or to, again, like I mentioned, Arvix or whatever, any hosting, DigitalOcean, whatever you want to do, AWS, whatever. We're going to go to hosting. Let me see, is this loading? Okay, there it is. It just took a little bit. And then here it says that you want to do hosting. So I want to do hosting on Firebase. I am going to show you how to install all the tools for doing the hosting. After you install this, you don't have to do it anymore. All you have to do is just Firebase deploy, and it's just going to deploy it. Simple as that. So let's set up hosting in Firebase. Let's go back again, because I like to repeat things so that you can get it and you learn it better. So I am going to my existing project, Flutter Dev Camp. I am going to go to the hosting on the left-hand side. You click on hosting. And then I'm going to set up hosting. So I click get started. And you see the first thing that it tells you is that you need to install the Firebase CLI. Alexander, that's exactly what we're going to be doing right now. So the first thing that you need to do is install Node.js so that you can have NPM available. So let me show you how you do that. I am going to go to Node.js. Remember, for who asked, can you need Node.js for Flutter Web? You need Node.js for the Firebase CLI, but you don't need it for Flutter Web. So that's why I'm installing Node.js, so that we can install it, so that we can install the tools for Flutter, for Firebase. So I'm going to install the recommended version, which is this one. So if you go to nodejs.org, I am going to drop this in the chat. And the command for running the app on localhost, that is correct. Yes, I'll do, for example, if I cd into the web folder and I just type HTTP server. But I am going to install Node.js, Sharmila, so that you see how you can run the HTTP server in localhost. So I'm going to show you that. Let's go back again. I'm going to download Node.js, and you can see right there. And there it is. It's downloading. It's just, I think I already have it in my package. So I'm going to cancel because I already have it in my downloads. So I'm going to show you in my downloads that I have the Node.js package. So in my, here I have the Node.js. Let me just show you real quick. Here it is in my downloads. I am going to double click on that Node.js package. I'm just double clicking on it. And you go through the steps. So it's just a very simple installer. If it's on a Mac, you hit continue. You have to kind of like agree, right? It's very simple. And then just hit install. So and I need my password, of course. And it's going to install Node.js. Node.js is a set of utilities based on JavaScript using the V8 engine that you can use to build very efficient web applications, RESTful APIs, and all of that. So Node.js gives you a bunch of utilities, and you see that it already installed NPM as well. So by you installing Node.js, I already dropped the link to Node.js, did I? Let me just drop it again, just in case I didn't do it. Okay, there we go. So this is the Node.js. You download Node.js, just run through the execution, and you saw now that it installed not only Node.js, but it installed NPM. NPM is Node Package Manager. So it's a package that you download so that you can download other packages. So it's a package to download other packages, pretty much. Got it. So I'm going to close, move it to trash because I don't need it. Perfect. So now if we follow the back again to Firebase hosting, you need to install the Firebase tools, which are right here. I am going to copy this command right here, npm install -g Firebase tools. I am saying npm install globally, meaning in the whole machine, the Firebase tools. So I'm going to copy that. You can click on this little icon. And I'm going to go to a command line. So I can go to a terminal anywhere, or even right here on Visual Studio. I can just do it right here. Check this out. So I'm going to type npm install Firebase tools. Simple as that. That's all I need. So if I install, I just hit enter. And now npm is installing the Firebase tools for me. Here is giving me an error. That is good. That is giving me an error, because here I don't have elevated privileges to run this application. So I need to use sudo. Sudo, remember, like you are a super user and you elevate your permissions, kind of like an admin. So you say sudo and then npm install -g Firebase tools. NPM, remember, comes as part of Node.js. So if I hit it, now I have to put my password, of course. Now we will install the Firebase tools. It will install fine. Perfect. So after it installs that, we're going to follow the same steps on Firebase, because Firebase says you need to install my tools. You need to install it globally, because with this tool, I'm going to deploy it to Firebase. And you're going to see how easy it is. You don't have to be now like connecting to an FTP, grabbing the folders, dropping it somewhere, waiting a few minutes, blah, blah, blah. With this tool, you just have to run one command, pushes it straight to Firebase in one single click. I'm going to show you how to do that. So after we install the Firebase tools, the next step, if you click next here, now all you have to do is sign in with the same account that you created the Firebase project. I'm going to cancel it one more time. Look, this same email that you're using, that you used to create your Firebase project, the same Gmail account. See, you need to log in through the CLI with this same email, because it's then not going to find your hosting. So let me do it again. So I'm going to click here. Next, let's log in to Firebase. So right here in Visual Studio Code, I am going to say, after I install the Firebase tools, Firebase Login. Hit enter. It takes a little bit, but it's gonna, okay, see, it's already, I'm already logged in. Let me log out first. There's another command, you say Firebase Logout. That is if you want to log out and you want to connect to another project or another system. Let's say you're on a team, you want to log into their Firebase, you can do it like that. So this is how you will experience it for the first time. You click Firebase Login for the first time. Firebase Login, it will actually open up a browser for you. It says, you want to allow Firebase to collect CLI usage? If you say yes, that's okay. But I'm going to say no. I'm going to say, no, that's okay. I don't need it. If you hit no and hit enter, it's going to open up a browser. And then you have to sign in with that same account, the account that you created the Firebase project in. So I'm going to be selecting the same account. It's asking you whether you need to provide CLI access to your Google account. Yes, you need to do that. So you click on allow right here. You click on allow. Let me zoom in so you guys can see it better. Click on allow right here. And it says, woohoo, Firebase CLI login successful. Perfect. Now you can close this window. So close the window. Let's go back to here. Now, after you've logged in, you see in the command line, it says success. Logged in as Roman, age request, blah, blah, blah. Perfect. Remember to be on the root. Be on the root of the project. If you hit LS or DIR, if you're on a Windows, make sure that you are at the root of your Flutter Web project. You have to be on the root to proceed with the next commands. So now that you are on the root of your project, and you are logged in, look, if I say Firebase Login, now it's going to issue, you should see your email in there. Perfect. Alexander says that you upgraded with NVM. Yes, you could try to use the version that is compatible with the Firebase tools. But I would recommend just to, you see like if I say, for example, like Node.js version, Node version. So mine is 16.15.1. I am in the stable version. You could be in the recommended, in the more advanced one, but I would recommend to be like on the recommended one. Great. Let's proceed. So now that you are in the root of the project and you already logged in, look, Firebase Login, and you see my email, you should be able to see your email there. You're all set. Now let's proceed. Firebase is going to download some configuration files to your project. So the way that you do that, just like in here in the instructions, you click Firebase init. So you're going to initialize Firebase in your project. Check this out. Firebase init. I'm going to hit Firebase init. And then you will see now that Firebase init is going to say, let me collapse this so that you see it. So you're about to initialize a Firebase project in this directory. So what it says, which Firebase features do you want to set up? It already gives you all the options. You can use you can use your arrows to select which is the option. You use the arrows to find hosting, configure files for Firebase hosting. Make sure that you use the arrows, and you see that you're there because you see this big Firebase in the command line, and it's going to ask you the first question, which Firebase features do you want to use? Let's just pick one. The one that we're going to pick with the arrow keys is the hosting configure files for Firebase hosting. You press the space bar to select it. You see that it did like a little green button, green little radio check on the command line for the hosting configure files for Firebase. So you use the arrows, right? You do space, you select it. You see, there it is. Now you hit enter. After you hit the space, you hit enter. Now it's going to say select it. Please select an option, either an existing project or a new project. You remember the one that we created? You could also create it from here, from the command line. That would have been easier to create it from here, but I wanted you to see the Firebase console first, because you're going to have to go there for a lot of things. So it's good to create it there, and then we're going to see it here. So the way that I'm going to say is use an existing project. That is the option that I'm going to pick. You use the arrow keys and you hit enter after you say use an existing project. And you see right there is my project. You find it. Make sure that you find the one that you created. Right there, Flutter Dev Camp. That is my project. It says Flutter Dev Camp. You see it? And then all you have to do is make sure that it's selected, it's highlighted, and you hit enter. I'm going to hit enter. What do you want to use as a public directory? Which public directory do we want to use? What is the public directory? The public directory is the directory where your published web files are. In our case, where are they? They are in a folder called build web. So that is exactly what I'm going to be typing here. By default, they're going to be creating a folder called public, but you are going to leave it exactly where this is. This is in the build web folder. No problem. Alexander, please drop your questions. This is exactly why we're here. We want to learn all together. Jose's there also as a impromptu assistant. He's helping out some other folks in there as well. Thank you very much, guys, for the assistance. So again, you can either do a public, you can use the existing build web folder. That is exactly what I'm going to do. Why? Because every time I build Flutter, it's going to land there. And when I publish, it's just going to pick them up right from that place. So I'm going to say build/web. That is the folder where my files are. So you do public/web. I'm going to hit enter. Do you want to configure as a single page app? Rewrite all URLs to index.html? Say yes, because we're going to be building a single page application. Kind of like a progressive web app. It's a single page where all the interactions in Flutter are going to be happening within a single frame, as opposed to multiple pages. So type Y, because you want to make it as a single page app. Say yes, hit enter. Set up automatic builds and deploys. No, we're not going to be doing automatic builds and deploy to GitHub because we're going to be doing Firebase. So type the N, say no, hit enter. The build web index already exists. Overwrite, don't overwrite it. But if because I don't want to overwrite my stuff. So don't overwrite it, say no, because it's our own index.html. So don't overwrite it. Just hit N. And then that's it. The configuration is complete. Now you will see this. If you open up the file system on the left-hand side, you will see a couple of new files that got added. So you will see this called Firebase RC, which is the kind of like the configuration for Firebase. Another configuration is the Firebase.json. The Firebase.json has some of those things that you need. Look at this. It has the public folder. It's going to say that the public folder is in the build web. So it's going to be grabbing the files that are inside of that folder and it's going to push it to Firebase. So make sure that you have this Firebase RC file, which defines your project. This is kind of like the one that connects to Firebase to know what project is that we're tapping into. And you have the Firebase JSON, which has the configuration about the things to ignore, things to rewrite, in the public folder, which is the build web. This is the folder where your web application is going to be posted to Firebase. Now that I have my Flutter application that you already saw it, is already built, it's in the Flutter Web folder, now we're ready to deploy to Firebase. Whoever is up to this point following along, you're going to see it now. You're going to see now how with one single command, I'm going to be able to publish this puppy right here. Look, Flutter, I'm going to say Flutter run -d Chrome, right? I'm going to run it one more time just so that you can see it. It's going to be running in localhost and right here. But this same application, I am going to deploy it now to Firebase. You will see it public, available on my own URL using HTTPS, my own page that I can even send it to other people. In that same project, I'm going to continue using it, building things, publishing, building things, publishing, and people will see my changes in real time. So this same application that you see in here locally, running in localhost, this same one is going to go up right now in just a minute. So you will see this. Actually, I'm going to change this. Actually, I can just leave it like this, but I just wanted to show you that this is the same one that we're going to see up there. So this same one that I'm clicking here, that is incrementing the numbers, I'm going to close it and kill the system. Now I'm ready to deploy. How do I deploy? You could go here in next. This is all you need to deploy. Firebase Deploy. I'm going to copy. And I can just continue to the console. And now you will see here that this will be the default URL that my application will have. It will say Flutter Dev Camp D0675.web.app. If I click it right now, there's nothing. It says site not found. Yeah, because there's nothing in there. Now let's deploy it. So I'm gonna go back to the command line. I'm gonna type the commands. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see it. Firebase deploy -- only. I say -- only hosting. This is saying if I have other Firebase stuff that I want to deploy, like cloud functions, storage, other things, it will deploy them. But this is only specifying I only want to deploy the hosting piece of this project. So I will hit enter after hitting Firebase deploy only hosting. I am going to hit enter. And you will see now here the command line doing its magic, grabbing the files from the build web folder, pushing it to Firebase. And you see now is uploading the new files. It's just one command. Firebase will deploy only, blah, blah, blah. That's it. Now it says that the deployment is complete. Now I can go here to this same URL, or right here, it already gives it to you as well. You can just click on this guy and we should be able to see our application. Voila. If you already did this, you are a Flutter published Flutter web developer. You see that it has the little lock in there because it has HTTPS. The connection is secure. You have the same functionality that you have for Flutter. Now start thinking about which type of things you want to build in Flutter now that you have all the resources available for you to build your own application. Check this out. I'm going to make a change now. I'm going to go back to the application. Look how you're going to be interacting with this setup. I'm going to go to my main application. I am going to then go to that. Where am I? So I already closed it, but let me, I can open it again. If you see it, there it is. That's my application, but I'm going to add something new. So I'm going to go to my application. This is what we're going to be doing from next week on. We're going to be now focused on Flutter itself. We want to build the experience. We want to build the application. So you see that here it says you have pushed this button many times. I'm going to type hello world from Flutter Dev Cam. I am going to make this, for example, add a style. You're going to learn all about this for those of you who are new in Flutter. I am going to add a text style and make the font size, for example. I'm going to make the font size really big. I'm going to say font size 50, for example. And I'm going to save. You see? So I'm saving. The way that you're going to execute when you do changes in your code, the way that you will do is first build it. I'm going to say Flutter build web, right? You first say Flutter build web, and I'm using the auto option. You see Flutter build web. First you build it. After you build it, it's going to add all those files. It's going to replace the files in the build web folder, right? So it's going to build that a new package for you. That's, let's say, one more change to this application. You're going to drop the change. You build it first, then you deploy. You do a little change, build and deploy. Do a little change, build and deploy. Simple as that. So we're going to be waiting for that to build. There you go. Now I am going to deploy. Firebase Deploy. I can even do just regular Firebase Deploy. I can do that because I'm only doing web. So I'm going to do Firebase Deploy. You see, Flutter build web, and now Firebase Deploy. So after you deploy, you see how quick it did it? Now I'm going to refresh this page. And there it is. You have the change already deployed. I can drop it in here. You guys can take a look. This is not a gimmick or anything. This is actually public. It's using HTTPS, and I was able to build this application and set it up so that now every changes that I do on the Flutter application, now they get billed to Firebase. So if you click in there, David, I click on the address. It was given to me by Firebase. I can also click it from here as well. I can click here and it will launch. You see, it will always be the same one. I dropped it in the chat so that you guys can see it. So I see, Sharmila, you have one. Let me take a look at yours. There you go. Awesome. Nice. I see a lot of people already dropping. If you already did it, drop your link. Let's take a look. Let's see what you did. Let's celebrate ourselves. So, this is exactly what we wanted to do. So I'm really pleased to show you all these tools. First, what we wanted to do was set everybody up, make sure that everybody was up and running with Flutter Web. Those of you who may have fallen a little bit behind, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. Please drop your comments in the Slack channel. We're going to help you out. For those of you who already finished, kudos to you. Continue. Let's help out other people in the Flutter channel. Drop your questions in there. We're going to help you out to get to this point, because first what we want to do is set everybody up, set all the tools, all the infrastructure. Now we're going to be focused only in Flutter. We're going to be learning building UIs, cool animations, all the stuff that I just wanted to show you. That application that I showed you earlier, the one that has like the air pollution and all that, I already have it in here. So check this out. I have it right here. I think I added it under, I think it was one of these ones. Let me see. I think I added it in this one. I think I have it. Let me show you. So under my hosting, I think I have it. So if anybody else already built it, let me see. I think I built it here, and I have it. So it's available for everybody to take a look at. Of course, I'm still developing it, but if you want to see, hey, you're showing me yours as well. Let's take a look. Sweet. Awesome. Hello to you as well. Oh, Alejandro, you called it my solutions code. That's awesome. Great. So you and then you see it's already HTTPS. I like that you're already playing with adding buttons and stuff. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. Keep dropping your links. Alejandro, you just changed it to something else. Let's take a look. So checking everybody's applications. I see that everybody was able to follow along. You see, hello, there you go. I'm going to click. Very cool. Sweet. So I see that a lot of people are actually leveraging this. But don't stop here, please. You can build as many projects as you can, as many Flutter web apps as you can. This is free, guys. It's who's managing this? This is all free. And I can build as many web apps as I can. I can have as many hostings as I can, all managing the Google Cloud. And on top of a great framework like Flutter, it's amazing. So please don't stop on just this project. Go ahead, create your own cool applications. Use Firebase Hosting for your own hosting. You can build, don't discriminate. You can even do another regular web application. You can use Firebase Hosting for your regular web application. But we're focused here on Flutter, and I just wanted to show you how cool it is to build really cool stuff in Flutter that you can delight your users and make really great experiences. So I really appreciate everybody. Any other questions? Oh, Jose, of course you have it. Altamar. Also a long-time attendee and organizer from GDG. I think he already has this as well. Let's take a look. Building yours as well. So I'll reload that. There you go. Awesome. So I see a lot of people build their ones. This is Jose now. Jose, take a look. Jose demo page. And there it is. Keep clicking. And I see a lot of people already are official published Flutter web developers. Thank you so much, guys. With that, we're gonna wrap it up. But again, like I said, please join the Flutter Slack channel. Join our Slack channel. Kevin, if you want to come off mute, I'm going to now I'm gonna do like the first raffle of the series. We're gonna be raffling one t-shirt. I am going to grab the information from the folks that have joined. I just wanted to say again, thank you so much. Linda, I don't know if you want to come off mute and just, thank everybody also for joining. But please remember, we're going to be 24/7 on the Slack channel. Those of you who couldn't come but want to complete it, please drop your link in there. We're going to help you with your application. I'm going to be dropping even use and build your own web apps. I'm going to show you the one that I'm going to be building throughout this series as well. So I'm going to
raffle time, everybody. Get ready.
Yes. I'm going to grab now. Go ahead.
I was saying drum roll.
Using this tool, actually, the wheel of name action. Like all the attendees, I see like a number of people who checked in. So I'm going to grab the people who have checked in. I'm going to export those names. I have to download it, and let me just take a look real quick. I'm going to grab only the folks who have checked in. I see 45 folks in here. I hope that you guys are still online and have enjoyed this session. Please drop in the chat. Again, keep dropping the chat. David says, can you share any resource on working with custom paint? I can do that. I am actually building one project that is using custom paint to build like a game. I can definitely, but please, David, be on the Slack channel because I'm going to be dropping all those resources right there. So make sure that you're there. So let me just grab the